Hey, welcome back to Compounding Quietly. Nobody buys SCHD at the wrong time. They buy it with the wrong expectation. If you've been refreshing the chart, waiting for a better entry, you know exactly how that hesitation feels. So here's the real question. What would actually make you feel it's not too late? Let's think through this together. Right now, SCHD might be one of the most searched dividend ETFs in the world, and that popularity creates a very specific kind of anxiety. It's late at night, you open the app, and you look at the price one more time. Then you open a forum, and someone has posted a screenshot of their yield on cost. They bought years ago, and their numbers look like they belong to a private club, and everyone standing outside wonders if the door has already closed. Here's what makes this feeling so persistent. Every time you check the price, you're comparing it to a past you didn't buy. That comparison always loses. The price 5 years ago will always look better than the price today. This is not analysis, it's regret, wearing the costume of analysis. And regret is a terrible entry strategy because it never gives you a green light. If the price rises, you feel more late. If the price falls, you start wondering what's wrong with the fund. Either way, you don't act, and the waiting itself quietly becomes a decision. So let's re-anchor the judgment here, because this is the part that matters. The question, is it too late to buy SCHD, assumes the fund has a finish line. It doesn't. A dividend growth ETF is not a race you enter early or late. It's a stream you either start collecting or you don't. The real variable is not the year you enter. It's the number of years you stay. That shift from entry, timing to holding duration, changes how you read everything that follows. So for the rest of this video, that's the lens we're going to use. Before we talk about what SCHD actually holds, here's the criterion that should sit in front of every fact. A fund structure only matters if it fits the job you're hiring it for. So as we go through this, keep asking one thing. What job am I giving this money? SCHD tracks an index of 100 companies, screened for at least 10 consecutive years of paying dividends. On top of that, it filters for quality cash flow relative to debt, return on equity, and dividend growth. In plain terms, it's not hunting for the highest yield on the shelf. It's hunting for companies boring, enough to keep raising their payments through good years and bad ones. Now picture what that screen actually does over time. Imagine a company that pays a generous dividend, but funds it with borrowed money. For a while, it looks like the better deal. Then a rough year arrives. The dividend gets cut, and the shareholders who came for income leave with losses. A screen like SCHD's is designed to quietly step around that company before the story plays out. Most investors never see the disasters a filter like this avoids. They only see the steady list of names that survived it. And that's the judgment summary here. The value of this structure is not what it picks, it's what it refuses to hold. Now let's deal with the price question directly, because this is where the too late feeling lives. Picture two investors. One bought SCHD years ago at a much lower price. The other buys today at what feels like the top. On day one, the early investor looks unbeatable. Her yield on cost is higher, her chart is green, and the comparison stings. But now run the clock forward instead of backward. If the underlying companies keep raising their dividends, both streams grow at the same pace from here. 10 years from now, today's price will be the old, cheap price someone else wishes they had. Here's a simple piece of arithmetic, not a prediction, just math. If a dividend stream grows around 7% a year, it roughly doubles in a decade. That doubling doesn't care what price you paid. It only cares that you were standing in the stream while it happened. The second investor's real risk was never the entry price. It was the possibility that the sting of comparison would keep her out of the stream entirely. And there's one more cost hiding inside the waiting itself. Picture an investor who decided 2 years ago to wait for a proper pullback before buying. The pullback came, but it was shallow, and it looked scary, so he waited for a deeper one. That one never arrived on schedule. For 2 full years, his cash sat still, while every quarterly payment went to someone else. When he finally looks back, the painful part isn't the price he could have paid. It's the distributions he never collected, and the growth those payments never got to compound. He wasn't protecting himself from risk. He was paying an invisible fee for the feeling of caution. The judgment here is uncomfortable, but simple. Waiting has a price too. It just never shows up on a statement. So let's come back to the question in the title. Is it too late to buy SCHD? Notice that the question quietly assumes the answer lives in the chart. It doesn't. It lives in your timeline. If you need this money back in 2 or 3 years, then yes, any entry is a gamble on price. Not because the fund is flawed, but because short windows turn every investment into a coin flip. But if this money has a decade or more to sit, the entry price becomes a footnote. What compounds is time in the stream, not precision at the door. That's the direction of judgment here. Late is not a date on the calendar. Late is a holding period too short for the strategy to work. So where does this leave you, standing at today's price? Go back to the beginning of this video. The anxiety you feel isn't really about SCHD. It's about the comparison your entry versus someone else's entry. And comparison is the one input that has nothing to do with your outcome. The investors who do well with funds like this are rarely the ones who timed the door. They're the ones who stopped renegotiating the decision. Every time the market moved, they picked a day, picked an amount, and let the stream do the slow work. That's not a lack of sophistication. That's the discipline the entire strategy depends on. If you've been waiting for the feeling of certainty before you start, notice this. That feeling was never coming. The early investors you envy didn't have it either. They just started, and time turned an ordinary entry into a story that looks like foresight. You don't need a better price. You need a longer timeline. Late is a holding period, not a date. And the criteria don't change with the market. That's the whole point. Compounding quietly. Slow, steady wealth building. If this helped, subscribe and leave a like. Everything here is for informational purposes only. All final decisions and responsibilities remain with you. Thanks for spending time with Compounding Quietly today.